President Trump's recent comments on Russia and Ukraine have European leaders scrambling to respond. Yesterday, President Trump spoke by phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin, breaking the 3-year period of silence between leaders of Russia and the United States. Now, later in the day, President Trump spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky, who afterwards said, "Together with the U.S., we are charting our next steps to stop Russian aggression and ensure a lasting, reliable peace." This is a major breakthrough, and we're going to talk about this in just a moment with Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania. He, as I mentioned, serves on 4 House committees, including the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. He represents the 10th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. He's also a combat veteran who retired at the rank of Brigadier General. Congressman Perry, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's great to be with you, Tony. And of course, look, rapid pace, right? As you know, in Washington, D.C. We had a hearing today on USAID, and it's amazing that I hate to say it, but my colleagues, friends on the other side of the aisle, there's just no limit to the waste and abusive spending that they won't support, and that's just. If Trump is for cleaning it up, they're for keeping it going. That's just kind of where we are, unfortunately, at this point.
Well, you talk about the rapid pace. I mean, 3 weeks into the Trump administration, and I mean, the fur is flying. There's just so much going on. After years of this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, it now appears that a light at the end of the tunnel could be seen, that we could see peace between those two countries. Your take on the president's comments yesterday after having a conversation with Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think the president was serious during the campaign when he said he was going to end this. I think he was serious when he said it was never going to start. Obviously, if he were, it would have been the president. Obviously, he has a relationship with both of the leaders of these two countries, and he knows what makes them tick. He probably knows what the motivation was. And I think that always in his mind there was a solution available, but he was unable to affect it from outside. And of course, Joe Biden projected weakness, and that was taken advantage of. And look, let's face it, President Biden really didn't have any meaningful conversations to resolve the circumstance at all during his entire presidency. He just assumed that the American people were fine with spending billions and billions of dollars into this endless killing machine in Ukraine. And so it's amazing what you can get done if you're willing to have a conversation, even if you don't agree with the person. Listen, I don't think that Russia has any valid claim whatsoever to be in Ukraine and to have started a war there. But it's not going to end just by sitting on your hands and not having a conversation, at least.
I mean, we have spent billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine. Thousands of lives have been lost on both sides. What does the end look like? I mean, is it just Russia going back to where they were prior to the start of this war? What do the boundaries look like?
Well, I think, unfortunately, that Ukraine, at least in the near term, is going to have to accept some loss of its territory. I don't like that, but I think that that's probably at least a partial outcome. And I hope that over time, part of the deal is that Russia walk back out of it. But it might also mean a commitment for Ukraine not to formally join NATO. And quite honestly, I don't really know what NATO's done in my lifetime to stem the tide of Russian interference, and NATO hasn't generally, in my mind, been completely or really successful at much of anything. So well, I don't know that that's a big loss.
They've spent U.S. money.
Oh, yeah, but of course, everybody's happy to spend the money of the United States of America, but that's not what NATO was set up for. And again, I think that most people, while they support NATO, would be hard-pressed to list any number of successes that NATO has had over the course of their lifetime. So if that's the concession that has to be made to get Russia out of Ukraine, I think that's one worth considering.
I mean, when you consider who else is in NATO, i.e. Turkey,
Yeah.
I'm wondering the effectiveness of NATO as an entity as well.
That's exactly right. I mean, Turkey is a NATO partner and a NATO ally, but we continually find ourselves at odds with them, whether it's in Syria with the Kurds or whether it's with purchasing of military equipment, and Russia, any relationship whatsoever with China. We constantly find ourselves on a tightrope with Turkey, and that's not how this is supposed to be. Obviously, they're of great strategic importance to the United States and to the world, but we shouldn't have to, play this dance with them. And that's why I say that in this case, NATO hasn't been very effective, and I'm not sure that that's a great loss if that's the concession that Ukraine and the world has to give to end the war and get Russia out of Ukraine.
Congressman Perry, I want to switch gears a little bit. You mentioned that USAID hearing you were a part of that this morning. I'm going to talk more about that later. Also going to talk about the Budget Committee meeting that is ongoing today. You were the former chair of the House Freedom Caucus. When you look at what's happening with USAID, the exposure of the wasteful spending, but not just wasteful spending, intentionally spending U.S. dollars, taxpayer dollars, to advance radical ideologies. But that's not just in USAID, it's throughout the government. We're looking at, at running a $2 trillion deficit each year. Are we close to bringing fiscal sanity, given what President Trump is committed to?
Well, we're closer than we have been in a long time, Tony, but we've got a lot of work to do. That's what's happening in the Budget Committee right now as we speak, where they're doing what's called the markup. It's probably not really going to be as much as I would like to see in reining in this just overcharged, out of control spending. But, you got to work with 434 other members, and there's a Senate involved too. I think the Senate, believe it or not, is going to come out with a lower number than the House is when it's all said and done. So we're going to have to negotiate. Now, I say that the Senate's going to come out with a lower overall number, but they still haven't talked about how they would reach that in the details. And so even though they might have that number, getting to it might be something they can't even really commit to. So, but I think the great news is that while somebody like me, who's been on the Foreign Affairs Committee for years now, screaming from the mountaintops about all this waste, whether it was USAID or state in general, or just, general government wasteful spending of taxpayer dollars, no one seemed to hear. And of course, legacy media would never report it. Elon Musk has, a unique position, being in charge of a major social media platform, and the microphone has been turned into a megaphone. And so, the proof is that when people hear about this waste, they want something done about it. And
hopefully it will get done. We got to leave it there. Congressman, thanks for joining us. Folks, stick with us.